December 1944. 6:23 hours. Snow-laden woods near Noville, Belgium. Inside the steel confines of a German Panther tank, Unteroffizier Klaus Wendel struggled to steady his pencil. The cold had stiffened both the graphite and his gloved hands. Each breath fobbed the narrow turret as he recorded a brief, uneasy observation in his personal journal. The Americans are using something new. We hear engines, then nothing. Before we can even swing the turret, they've vanished. The day before, 3 Tiger tanks from his sector had been reduced to burning wrecks. Raising himself through the commander's hatch, Wendel scanned the dark outline of the Ardennes forest. Beyond the frozen tree line, unseen but already on the move, elements of the US 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion were positioning their M18 Hellcats. Wendel had no way of knowing that less than 20 minutes from that moment, his understanding of armored combat formed through years of brutal warfare was about to collapse. German armored doctrine had been refined relentlessly since 1939. The Panther tank embodied that evolution. Its long-barreled 75mm gun could destroy any American tank at distances approaching 2 kilometers. Its sloped frontal armor was engineered to defeat most Allied anti-tank rounds. It was a machine designed for deliberate, overpowering engagements, heavy, dominant, precise. And yet, within minutes of first contact, Wendel would watch multiple German tanks destroyed by enemy vehicles moving at speeds German armor could barely reach even on open roads. By the 4th day of the Battle of the Bulge, across the icy forests of Belgium and Luxembourg, German crews were confronting a deeply unsettling truth. The Americans had not built a better armored tank. They had built something else entirely, an armored predator that relied not on protection or brute force, but on speed so extreme it seemed incompatible with survival on a battlefield. The origins of the M18 Hellcat stretched back to December 1941, immediately following America's entry into the war. While German engineers continued pursuing a philosophy centered on thicker armor and heavier guns, culminating in 45 Toon Panthers and nearly 70 Ton King Tigers, American planners chose a radically different path. Under the direction of General Leslie McNair, the U.S. Army created a dedicated tank destroyer force on November 21, 1941. Its operational doctrine, formalized in Field Manual FM-18-M5, was starkly simple: locate enemy armor, strike first, and disengage. Survivability would come from speed and positioning, not armor thickness. The vehicle that would become the M18 Hellcat, known during development as the T-70, pushed this philosophy to an extreme that German designers would later dismiss as reckless, if not outright insane. In January 1942, General Motors' Buick Motor Division in Flint, Michigan received the production contract. Contrary to common belief, the work was not done at the Sherman tank facility in nearby Grand Blanc. Chief Engineer Joseph Roberts was handed a list of requirements that seemed mutually exclusive: install a high-velocity 76mm gun capable of defeating German armor, keep the vehicle low enough for concealment, limit total weight to under 20. The solution abandoned nearly every convention of traditional tank design. Armor protection was reduced to the bare minimum. The turret's thickest frontal plate measured just over 25mm. The hull front was thinner still, approximately 12.7mm, enough to stop small arms and heavy machine gun fire, but little else. Any direct hit from a German 88mm gun would not merely penetrate, it would tear straight through the vehicle. Every design choice served one purpose: movement. The result was a machine unlike anything else on the battlefield. Fast, lightly armored, and brutally efficient when used correctly, the M18 Hellcat earned its place in history as the fastest tracked armored fighting vehicle of the Second World War, a vehicle that didn't try to outfight German tanks head-on, but instead rewrote the rules of how armored warfare could be fought. And in the frozen forests of the Ardennes, German crews were about to learn that speed, when weaponized correctly, could be just as lethal as steel. The M18 Hellcat made its European debut in the early months of 1944. Its first operational deployment occurred in Italy with the 894th Tank Destroyer Battalion, but it was the 74th Tank Destroyer Battalion that became the initial unit in the European theatre to receive these vehicles in May 1944, later landing at Utah Beach on July 13th. The Hellcat first demonstrated its distinctive combat capabilities during the Normandy breakout, quickly earning a formidable reputation among German tank crews. On July 29, 1944, near Coutances, France, units of German heavy tank battalions reported unsettling encounters with American tank destroyers that seemed to vanish before the Germans could return fire. Post-engagement reports recorded enemy vehicles moving at speeds estimated at 80 km per hour across rough terrain, with combat engagements lasting roughly 3 minutes from initial shot to the enemy's disappearance. When compared to German tanks, the numbers were stark and alarming. The turret of a Panther required approximately 1 minute to complete a full rotation. Its maximum speed reached 34 mph on paved roads and only 15 mph across open terrain. By contrast, the M18 Hellcat could accelerate from a standstill to 30 mph in just 7 seconds, sustain 55 mph on roads or even reach 60 mph without the governor, and maintain 26 mph off-road. In the short span it took a Panther crew to recognize the threat, turn their turrets, aim and fire, a Hellcat could have moved nearly 1.5 miles away. This mobility made the M18 an exceptionally elusive target. Armament-wise, the Hellcat's 76mm M18 gun posed a serious challenge to German armor. While standard M62A PCVC ammunition could not pierce the Panther's frontal plate, the gun was capable of defeating 40mm side armor at ranges up to 1500 meters. With the rare M93 HVAP tungsten rounds supplied sparingly, with crews often receiving only 1 or 2 per month, the Hellcat could penetrate 157mm of armor at 500 yards. The gun's high muzzle velocity of 2,600 feet per second meant that shells could reach their targets faster than the sound of the firing itself. German armored warfare doctrine emphasized slow, methodical engagements, precise target acquisition, deliberate firing, and careful ammunition conservation. Crews were extensively trained to fight from prepared positions, using terrain for hull-down protection. Tanks such as the Panther and Tiger were designed to operate within this system, heavily armored, powerful, but relatively slow-moving. The M18 Hellcat disrupted every assumption underlying these tactics. American crews were trained at Camp Hood, Texas, a facility specifically established for tank destroyer tactics and gunnery. They were instructed never to remain stationary for more than 30 seconds after firing, embracing the mantra "speed is life." While German doctrine centered on the decisive shot, American doctrine for tank destroyers stressed rapid strikes and immediate relocation, the shoot and scoot principle. Production of the Hellcat was limited but impactful. Between July 1943 and October 1944, Buick's Flint, Michigan plant built a total of 2,507 M18s, significantly fewer than the originally planned 8,986. The production sequence began with 6 pilot vehicles, followed by an initial order of 1,000 units, and concluded with a final batch of 1,507 vehicles. Peak output reached 267 units in November 1943. Although this number was modest compared to the output of Sherman tanks, it still outpaced German Panther production. By late 1944, Germany struggled to manufacture more than 90 Panthers per month, whereas American factories had already completed the full Hellcat production run. This created a strategic advantage. Each German tank lost was irreplaceable, while American forces could quickly replenish any losses. The Hellcat was powered by a Wright R975 radial engine, originally developed for aircraft. Early production vehicles with serial numbers 1 through 1350 used the naturally aspirated R975 cone engine, generating 350 horsepower. Subsequent vehicles, serial numbers 1351 through 2507, were equipped with the supercharged R975 C4 engine, producing 400 horsepower from March 1944 onward, offering enhanced performance in combat. In practice, the combination of speed, firepower, and agility allowed the M18 Hellcat to redefine armored combat on the European front, forcing German crews to confront a type of mobile threat for which their heavy tanks were ill-prepared. Its tactical impact extended beyond individual engagements, shaping how armored warfare was conducted and emphasizing mobility over sheer armor. The combination of powerful engines with the M18 Hellcat's relatively light frame, ranging from 17.7 to 20 tons depending on the variant, resulted in an extraordinary power-to-weight ratio of approximately 20 to 22.5 horsepower per ton. In comparison, the German Panther tank produced only 15 horsepower per ton. The Hellcat's hydrostatic automatic transmission, paired with a torque converter, allowed operators to maintain top speed while executing maneuvers, a decisive edge over German tanks that relied on manual gear shifting and clutch operation. With a ground pressure of just 10.5 psi, lower than many wheeled vehicles, the M18 could traverse mud and snow that would immobilize heavier tanks such as the 57-ton Tiger I with 15.2 psi or the 69.8-ton Tiger II. The breakout from Normandy in August 1944 offered the first large-scale test of Hellcat operational doctrine, coinciding with Operation Cobra, which began on July 28, 1944. The 6,003rd Tank Destroyer Battalion, which had received M18s in October 1943 and landed on Utah Beach between July 21 and 22, took part in the rapid sweep across Brittany. Shortly thereafter, the 74th and 75th Battalions, also equipped with M18s, joined the fast-paced advance. Traditional armored tactics, emphasizing careful, covered approaches and prolonged engagements, were largely abandoned. Instead, crews of the Hellcats exploited their superior speed to conduct sudden flanking maneuvers, striking from unexpected directions before German turret crews could bring their weapons to bear. The Battle of 18 and 29, 1944, near the Nancy Bridgehead over the Moselle River, demonstrated the M18's effectiveness when employed correctly. Despite occasional misreporting, the engagement occurred in September, not October. Elements of the German 113th Panzer Brigade faced the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, which was attached to the 4th Armored Division's Combat Command A, on September 19, under dense fog limiting visibility. Within the first 5 minutes, 5 German tanks were destroyed while the battalion lost only a single M18. Over the course of the encounter, 10 additional enemy tanks were knocked out for the loss of 2 more Hellcats. During the battle, Captain Tom Evans earned the Distinguished Service Cross after personally manning the gun of a disabled M18 to eliminate enemy vehicles. Overall, the engagement resulted in 39 German tanks destroyed versus 4 M18s lost and 3 damaged, yielding a remarkable kill ratio of 5.6 to 1 and validating the tank destroyer concept. The Battle of the Bulge in December 1944 became the Hellcats' most renowned proving ground. The 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion, described by General A.D. Bruce as the finest tank destroyer unit yet trained, was rushed to Bastogne to provide critical armored support to the 101st Airborne Division. Between December 19 and 20 near Noville, M18s from both the 609th and 75th Battalions confronted elements of the German 2nd Panzer Division. Lieutenant David K. Hagen's platoon of 4 Hellcats arrived first, achieving remarkable success. One M18 destroyed 7 German tanks, while another eliminated 5, with the platoon losing only a single vehicle and accounting for 14 enemy tanks in total. Later on, December 19, approximately 12 additional M18s from the 7005th under Lieutenant Colonel Clifford D. Templeton arrived to reinforce the line. The combined forces succeeded in destroying at least 30 German tanks over 2 days, inflicted an estimated 600 to 1,000 enemy casualties, and brought a crucial 48-hour delay for Allied operations. In recognition of their performance during this period, the 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion was awarded a Presidential Unit Citation for actions in Bastogne from December 18 to 27, 1944. On December 25, 1944, the 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion faced one of its most intense engagements during the Battle of the Bulge. On that single day, They managed to knock out 27 German armored vehicles while sustaining the loss of only 6 M18 Hellcats, engaging elements of the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division. This remarkable performance exemplified their consistently high kill ratios even under extreme combat pressure. Across the entire siege of Bastogne, the unit destroyed roughly 40 enemy tanks for the loss of 6 M18s, translating to an impressive kill ratio of nearly 7-1. The Hellcat's design proved particularly advantageous under difficult battlefield conditions. German heavy tanks with their substantial weight often became immobilized in the mud and snow that blanketed the Ardennes, whereas the M18, with its light chassis and low ground pressure, could maintain maneuverability. The opening phase of the bulge was characterized by dense fog, grounded Allied air support, and visibility frequently reduced to less than 100 meters. German armored tactics, heavily reliant on long-range gunnery, were rendered largely ineffective. By contrast, Hellcat crews trained in close-range ambush techniques at Camp Hood's Revolutionary Battle Conditioning Course were well prepared to exploit these conditions. The M18's mobility also offered a strategic edge. Where a King Tiger required a Class 70 bridge to cross, rare in the European theater, the M18 could traverse Class 24 bridges, essentially any structure capable of supporting a loaded truck. This difference proved crucial during river crossings along the Rhine, allowing Hellcats to advance on temporary bridges installed by combat engineers while German heavy tanks were forced to search for intact, reinforced crossings capable of supporting their immense weight. Production numbers further amplified American advantages. Between July 1943 and October 1944, U.S. factories produced 25,570 M18 Hellcats. German tank production, by contrast, was severely limited. Only about 6,000 Panther tanks were built, along with 492 King Tigers and 1,347 Standard Tigers. In practical terms, for every Panther rolled out by Germany, the United States produced approximately 8 tanks or tank destroyers combined. By late 1944, the numerical superiority of American armored forces was overwhelming, encompassing 49,234 MAF-4 Shermans, 257 M18 Hellcats, 2,324 M18 tank destroyers, 273. Training disparities compounded these advantages. German crews trained in methodical engagement and careful ammunition management faced a depletion of experienced personnel by late 1944. Replacement crews often received as little as 2 weeks of preparation before entering combat. American Hellcat crews, in contrast, underwent rigorous instruction at Camp Hood, Texas. Tank destroyer training lasted 17 weeks, emphasizing speed, maneuverability, and initiative. Under the leadership of Lieutenant Colonel, later Brigadier General, Andrew D. Bruce, the facility could simultaneously train over 100,000 soldiers across 28 battalions and 8 groups at various stages of preparation. Soldiers drilled in rapid firing, swift repositioning, and coordinated assaults until these actions became instinctive. The Revolutionary Battle Conditioning Course, initially called the Tank Hunting Course, introduced live fire exercises in simulated combat environments, a groundbreaking approach for U.S. topsure Army training at the time. By late 1944, the U.S. tank destroyer doctrine had matured into highly effective combat methods. Field Manual FM-18-5, issued in June 1942, defined the clear mission of tank destroyer units to eliminate enemy armor. General Bruce later elaborated, clarifying that seek entailed proactive reconnaissance, strike referred to the destruction of enemy tanks through deliberate gunfire rather than reckless charges, and destroy emphasized. These principles, combined with mobility, crew training, and industrial output, ensured that units like the 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion could dominate armored engagements even under the most challenging circumstances of the Ardennes offensive. Combat experience fundamentally reshaped tactical thinking regarding armored engagements. Early campaigns in North Africa revealed that head-on, full-speed assaults were often tantamount to suicide for tank crews. Consequently, successful tactics shifted toward a blend of audacity, stealth, and clever deception, emphasizing maneuverability over brute force. This evolution gave rise to specialized approaches in the use of the M18 Hellcat tank destroyer. M18 crews pioneered what became known as Wolfpack tactics. Small teams, typically 3 or 4 vehicles, conducted coordinated attacks while operating semi-independently. Radio communication allowed these units to establish overlapping fields of fire while constantly relocating, minimizing their exposure to enemy return fire. By the conclusion of World War II, M18 units had amassed impressive combat records. Official figures from the Army Historical Foundation document a total of 526 confirmed enemy armored vehicle destructions, with 498 occurring in the European theater, 17 in Italy, and 11 in the Pacific. With approximately 216 M18s lost to enemy action in Europe, this resulted in an overall kill-to-loss ratio of 2.41, and specifically 2.31 in Europe, the highest for any US tank or tank destroyer during the war. Certain units surpassed even these remarkable averages. The 63rd Tank Destroyer Battalion destroyed more than 90 enemy armored vehicles, while the 74th Battalion achieved comparable results, including 39 enemy kills in a single engagement at Aracourt. During the Battle of Bastogne, the 75th Battalion demonstrated sustained combat effectiveness by eliminating 40 enemy tanks while losing only 6 of their own. The 6001st Battalion recorded the most outstanding ratio of nearly 23-1. Analyses of losses show that roughly 40–50% of M18 casualties were inflicted by enemy tanks and anti-tank artillery taking advantage of the Hellcats' light armor. Mechanical failures accounted for 25–35% of losses, while the remainder resulted from infantry anti-tank weapons, artillery strikes, and mines. A comparison between American and German armored vehicle design philosophies highlights the fundamental differences in approach. The German Panther weighed approximately 44.845 tons, with its 80mm sloped frontal armor offering an effective thickness near 140 mm. The Tiger I reached 57 tons with 100mm of vertical frontal protection, and the Tiger II, or King Tiger, weighed 69.8 tons, featuring. By contrast, the M18 Hellcat was significantly lighter at 17.720 tons, with hull armor ranging from 12.7mm to 25.4mm on the turret front, thinner than some German armored cars. This minimal protection, however, translated into exceptional speed, which became the Hellcat's primary defensive advantage. At a distance of 500 meters, a Hellcat moving across a Tiger's line of sight at 40 m/5 could traverse the target zone in just 4.5 seconds faster than a gunner could manually track the target after a hydraulic failure, a common problem in combat. In addition to mobility, the M18 proved mechanically reliable compared to German heavy tanks. Its RA975 radial engine, derived from aircraft technology, started reliably even under extreme cold, allowing instant acceleration. German crews, accustomed to diesel engines that required careful warming, often found this performance astonishing. Meanwhile, the Panther's advanced but fragile transmission frequently failed in combat, and mechanical issues rather than enemy action caused a significant proportion of Tiger II losses. The M18's simplified design, relying on established automotive components wherever feasible, ensured consistently high operational availability. American logistical superiority further enhanced the Hellcat's effectiveness. While German armored units were often immobilized by fuel shortages, damaged components, or limited ammunition, M18 units maintained high rates of readiness thanks to well-organized supply networks. This combination of speed, reliability, and efficient support rendered the Hellcat an extraordinarily effective tank destroyer throughout the war. Throughout World War II, the success of Allied armored units was strongly supported by logistics systems like the Red Ball Express, which ensured a steady flow of fuel to frontline units. Standardization of vehicle components further simplified maintenance under combat conditions, allowing tanks to remain operational for extended periods. In contrast, by the end of 1944, German forces were grappling with severe fuel shortages. Operations such as the Ardennes offensive, codenamed Operation Watch on the Rhine, were in part designed to seize Allied fuel reserves, as their own supply chains could not support sustained armored maneuvers. This scarcity meant that German tanks were frequently confined to defensive positions, which played directly into the strengths of highly mobile tank destroyers like the M18 Hellcat. Communication capabilities further widened the gap between Allied and German armored forces. Each M18 Hellcat was equipped with both intercom and radio systems, such as the 508 or 528, which provided consistent and reliable contact between vehicles and command. German armored units, especially later in the war, often operated with damaged, outdated, or entirely absent communication equipment, relying on prearranged signals or visual markers. This difference, though seemingly minor, had profound tactical consequences. Hellcat crews could adjust their movements and coordinate attacks in real time, striking simultaneously from multiple directions as a cohesive unit. German tank crews, isolated by poor communication, were unable to respond with comparable flexibility or speed. The first operational encounters that hinted at the M18's unique capabilities occurred in Italy before the vehicle's legendary role in northwest Europe. In May 1944, during the breakout from Anzio, the 894th Tank Destroyer Battalion's Hellcats engaged elements of the Hermann Göring Panzer Division. The region's rolling hills, vineyards, and stone walls might have neutralized the advantages of speed and maneuverability under normal circumstances. Instead, these conditions enhanced the psychological impact of the Hellcats. Their remarkable acceleration, capable of ascending slopes at angles up to 30 degrees faster than German tanks could on level ground, allowed them to appear at multiple locations along ridgelines in rapid succession, creating the impression of omnipresence. Despite this early demonstration, the German High Command largely overlooked the threat, remaining focused on the Eastern Front where their main armored strength was deployed. The onset of winter in 1944 to 1945 further accentuated the Hellcats' advantages. The M18's relatively low ground pressure of 10.5 psi, combined with wide tracks and a lightweight frame, allowed it to traverse snow-covered terrain that immobilized heavier German vehicles. Already burdened by mechanical unreliability, Tigers and Panthers struggled to maneuver in harsh winter conditions. During the Battle of the Bulge, Hellcat crews capitalized on this mobility, racing through terrain that bogged down heavier tanks and striking behind German lines in areas previously considered inaccessible to armor. This ability to maneuver swiftly in adverse conditions was instrumental in the successful Allied defense of Bastogne and showcased how the combination of speed, communication, and tactical flexibility could offset the raw firepower of heavier enemy tanks. German forces, confronted with the M18 Hellcat, experimented with a variety of countermeasures, yet consistently failed to neutralize the threat. Updated tactical manuals advised crews to deploy smoke screens immediately upon spotting Hellcats, effectively obscuring their own positions in the hope of evading attack. Other improvised solutions, such as welding extra track links to the side armor, which offered negligible protection against the 76mm gun, or setting deliberate ambushes with concealed anti-tank emplacements, proved largely ineffective. The Hellcats' combination of rapid speed, potent armament, and operational versatility consistently outmatched the resources available to German units. Its presence alone altered German tactics. Commanders hesitated to commit armor without extensive reconnaissance, slowing advances and forfeiting battlefield momentum. In March 1945, near Remagen, elements of the 656th Tank Destroyer Battalion exploited the M18's light weight by crossing the partially destroyed Ludendorff Bridge, a feat impossible for heavier armored vehicles. Once across, they established a defensive screen that destroyed 11 German tanks attempting to approach, including 2 King Tigers that were unable to maneuver effectively within the constrained terrain. This engagement highlighted the operational advantage of the M18's mobility. Unlike the German heavy tanks, which were restricted to reinforced routes and bridges, Hellcats could traverse any passage capable of supporting truck traffic, enabling them to strike in unexpected locations deep behind enemy lines. By April 1945, the Ruhr pocket became a catastrophic trap for German Army Group B. The 893rd Tank Destroyer Battalion's Hellcats executed operations that have since been cited by historians as exemplary demonstrations of tank destroyer doctrine. They moved at speeds approaching 60 miles per hour along cleared roads, penetrating collapsing lines and emerging far behind German positions before enemy commanders could even recognize that the front had been breached. These late-war maneuvers illustrated the M18's design philosophy realized in practice: mobility as protection, velocity as a weapon, and surprise as the primary tactic. German defensive works, optimized to withstand deliberate assaults by heavy tanks, were rendered ineffective against vehicles that could simply outmaneuver them at highway speeds. Post-war assessments by US Army historians affirmed the validity of the M18 concept, despite acknowledged limitations. The 76mm gun, however, faced inherent constraints. Standard ammunition could not reliably pierce the frontal armor of Panther or Tiger tanks, forcing crews to attempt risky flanking maneuvers. With the Mi-62 APC-BC round penetrating just 93mm 500 yards, and HVAP rounds being scarce, frontal engagements against heavy German armor required dangerously close approaches. Nevertheless, the Hellcat's combat record reflects the effectiveness of its unique employment. Across its service, 526 confirmed enemy vehicle kills were achieved at the cost of 216 M18s, giving it the highest kill-to-loss ratio of any American armored vehicle in World War II. This accomplishment stemmed not from raw firepower or heavy armor, but from the innovative use of speed and mobility, combined with well-trained crews. The M18 Hellcat was more than a mere vehicle. It represented a fundamentally new approach to armored warfare. While German doctrine emphasized tanks as breakthrough weapons and mobile fortresses, the Americans introduced the concept of a vehicle designed purely for hunting. The tank destroyer motto, "Seek, Strike, Destroy," proved remarkably prescient. By the end of the conflict, US 2 tank destroyer battalions had claimed the destruction of over 11,000 enemy vehicles, with Hellcat units achieving the highest kill ratios of any American formation. The operational doctrine stressed that tank destroyers were not intended to fight as tanks but to ambush, strike, and vanish. Beyond tactical victories, the Hellcat exerted a significant strategic influence, compelling the enemy to alter deployments and reinforcing the effectiveness of mobility-focused armored doctrine. During the later stages of World War II, German armored forces increasingly adopted a defensive posture rather than concentrating for decisive counterattacks. Instead of deploying their tanks aggressively, commanders often held reserves back to guard against potential raids by American tank destroyers. The very presence of M18 Hellcat units could halt German armored movements for significant periods, as officers attempted to ascertain the exact positions of these fast-moving vehicles. During the Ardennes offensive, for instance, intercepted German communications revealed commanders repeatedly seeking confirmation that no Hellcats were in the area before committing their precious armored reserves. This caution came at a cost. Valuable hours were consumed in reconnaissance, and the momentum of the offensive suffered, all because of a threat from a vehicle weighing less than half of a Panther tank. The 257 M18 Hellcats produced during the war embodied an American approach that prioritized practicality over perfection. Whereas Germany devoted 3 years to constructing approximately 6,000 Panther tanks, often hampered by component shortages and strict quality control, Buick was able to complete the entire M18 production run in just 15 months. German engineers, when examining captured M18s, often remarked on the apparent roughness of their construction welds that were functional rather than flawless, armor plates marked with tooling impressions, and interiors that seemed improvised rather than carefully planned. Yet, despite this outward simplicity, the Hellcats consistently demonstrated the ability to destroy German tanks designed with painstaking precision. The contrast stemmed from differing design philosophies. German tanks were engineering marvels, reflecting meticulous craftsmanship and technological ambition. American tank destroyers, by contrast, were conceived as practical instruments, tools optimized for a single purpose, speed and firepower, rather than mechanical perfection. This technological and tactical duel came with profound human consequences. Young German tank crews, many barely out of their teens by 1945, faced a weapon that invalidated the lessons and strategies they had been trained in. Their Panthers and Tigers, symbols of German engineering excellence, could be destroyed in moments by M18 rounds fired from concealed positions. American tank crews, while experiencing fewer losses overall, bore their own burdens. The speed that allowed them to strike first also meant they often attacked without warning, leaving opposing crews little chance to surrender. The light armor of the M18 meant that any direct hit could be devastating, though the open-top turret design paradoxically increased survival rates. Over 80% of crews survived hits, compared to only 35% for German heavy tank operators. The influence of the M18 Hellcat extended beyond the conflict itself. Post-war military analysts studied its deployment extensively, drawing lessons on the importance of mobility over armor in specific tactical situations. The modern emphasis on rapid repositioning, shoot-and-scoot tactics, and mobility as a key component of battlefield survival can trace its origins directly to the operational use of the M18 during 1944 to 1945. Today, a restored M18 Hellcat is displayed at the entrance to the Armor School at Fort Moore, formerly Fort Benning. Its commemorative plaque celebrates it as the fastest armored fighting vehicle of the Second World War and as a testament to American ingenuity, a vehicle whose speed and tactical employment allowed relatively simple machinery to outmatch some of the most sophisticated tanks ever built. The M18 Hellcat's production spanned a relatively short period, beginning in July 1943 and concluding in October 1944, a total of 15 months. During this time, 257 units were manufactured, with the highest monthly output reaching 267 vehicles in November 1943. Each tank destroyer carried a unit cost of $57,500 according to 1943 dollars, and production was centered at the Buick Division in Flint, Michigan. The Hellcat's performance was notable for its speed. It could reach a maximum of 55 mph with an unguided top speed of 60 mph and accelerate from a standstill to 30 mph in just 7 seconds. Its operational range extended between 100 and 105 miles, with a power-to-weight ratio between 20 and 22.5 horsepower per ton and ground pressure measured at 10.5 psi. In combat, the M18 proved extraordinarily effective. Across its deployment, it destroyed 526 enemy vehicles while sustaining 216 losses due to enemy fire, yielding an overall kill-to-loss ratio of 2.4 to 1. Within the European theater specifically, this ratio was slightly lower at 2.3 to 1. By comparison, contemporary German tanks demonstrated different characteristics. The Panther weighed approximately 44.8 to 45 tons, with 15 horsepower per ton and a top speed of 34 mph. The Tiger weighed 57 tons, equipped with 100mm frontal armor with 1,347 units produced, and the Tiger II reached 69.8 tons with 1. The irony of the Hellcat's success lies in the unintended consequences of German tank development strategy. By pursuing increasingly heavy designs such as the Panther, Tiger I, and King Tiger, Germany inadvertently created slow-moving targets ideally suited for the Hellcat's hit-and-run tactics. Had German designers emphasized mobility and lighter tanks, the advantages of the M18 would have been greatly reduced. Instead, each additional ton of armor increased vulnerability to American tank destroyers. In essence, the quest for virtually invulnerable supertanks produced machines that were unable to respond effectively to rapid, high-speed maneuvers. The M18, a relatively lightly armored vehicle with a powerful gun, demonstrated that strategic application of the correct equipment can outweigh raw technological superiority. German crews operating their formidable Panther and Tiger tanks were repeatedly defeated by crews in vehicles that appeared far too fragile to succeed. This remains a striking example of how military doctrine can surpass technological might. Military historian Stephen J. Zoger described the M18 as unbalanced in design, crediting its battlefield performance more to crew proficiency than to engineering excellence. Yet this perspective overlooks a critical factor. The very imbalance between speed and armor enabled innovative tactics that resulted in the highest kill-to-loss ratio for any American armored vehicle during World War II. For German tank crews encountering the M18 in 1944–45, engagement often lasted no longer than 3 minutes. From the first sound of the Hellcat's high-revving engine, they had only minutes to recognize the threat, rotate the turret, aim, and fire, all while the M18 was already moving to a new firing position at speeds up to 55 mph. In most cases, those 3 minutes ended with their tank aflame and the Hellcat disappearing into the distance, ready to strike again. The Hellcats' battlefield lessons were clear. Speed could render armor nearly irrelevant, and surprise and mobility could compensate for deficiencies in firepower. German crews who survived such encounters gained first-hand insight into a new paradigm of armored warfare. Avoiding direct exposure, striking from unexpected positions, and employing vehicles suited to actual combat conditions proved more decisive than simply constructing the heaviest or most powerful tank. In these brief, intense encounters lay the distinction between outdated thinking and adaptive strategy, between fighting the previous war and confronting contemporary realities. Despite its light armor and being outgunned by German supertanks, the M18 Hellcat achieved what heavier, seemingly superior vehicles could not: dominance on the battlefield through speed, disciplined crews, and tactical ingenuity. For those in German tanks, the 3-minute window defined the difference between survival and destruction. The M18 story remains a testament to the principle that in warfare, appropriate equipment and its effective use can triumph over brute strength and technological overreach.